Hi, this is Maryam. I'm just going to be walking through my Advanced Interactive Media Development coursework 1. It's still a work in progress, but I'm just going to show you how I implemented it and move on from there. So I use the character Mia, but I'm hoping to get a Mixamo character or create my own character in Fuse. So this is an example of an animation I found that I thought would work well in the rest of my coursework. This is a waiter maybe dropping food on the floor and then getting back up. So I found that would fit quite nicely with the cafe scene. So initially I used a Mia Blue character from the asset browser without any animation and just characterize it. So to do that, I just went and enabled the X-ray view by pressing Ctrl A or by going further into the settings there, and then just dragged the character from the resources onto the hip bone to enable the characterization and making sure that it was biped, not quadruped. So I just made sure that I renamed it so when we had multiple characters, it was just easier to figure out which character was which. So if I go back to my motion builder file and walk you through that. So obviously I just shown you how to characterize the Mia. So within my coursework, I just dragged in the already characterized Mia because it was just easier. So we wanted to make sure that even though it was characterized, we wanted to decharacterize it so we could get a floor plane and just make sure that that was rigged and tested well. So if we moved that up, the character would actually move along with it. To plot the control rig, we basically just went into character definition and dropped the floor plane into the mapping list there as a reference for the left foot and right foot, and then went on to the character settings and changed the floor contact behavior and made sure it was always synced and the foot floor and the toes floor contact was initialized there. So these little boxes here, they were just basically shaping the foot around it so the X-ray knew where the character's foot was. So we can just change that along with the foot contact size and just making sure that the foot outside, which is the width of the foot, and the foot front and the foot height is just well measured. So I did that and made sure that it fitted quite nicely, and then just made sure it was active, and then the input type was the control rig just there. So obviously this had to make sure that it was for character Mia. I'm just going to go into story now and explain how I did the animation. So there's 3 clips, the stand, talk 1A, 1B, and 1C. So we wanted to make sure that all these clips were the right frames per second and making sure that it was consistent throughout the project. We wanted to make sure that the loop was on because we wanted to loop each animation track and have the same stand pose consistently throughout. So if I went to the beginning of the animation track and went to the end, you can see that the stand pose did not shift. So when it was looped, there was no big jumps. To do that, we just had to drag the animation in by going to insert character animation track and then basically inserting a new subtrack. Oh no, insert an animation file there. So I'm just going to leave that, but as an example, I went and inserted a subtract there and made sure that it was a character additive. So when doing that and inserting the animation track in, just making sure that it was at 0 and not before or after it, so they all started at the same time. So we razored the file using quite a few options. There was either dragging the end of the clip towards the right mark that you wanted, or razoring it from that option and then deleting the rest. So once it had been razored and you had the right size frames, we just wanted to, in the character additive, we wanted to insert a stand pose. So once that was processed, that same stand pose could be used throughout the whole animation and pasted for each individual animation file. So to do that, we just went into the control rig and selected the full body mode here, and we went to pose controls just there in the resources folder there, and we wanted to hit the create. So to do this, because we wanted the animation to stay consistent, we wanted to make sure that all the fingers and toes were selected as well. So we went through and just selected those. Just an example. So once that pose had been created and we renamed it Mia pose, so we knew which character it was for, we just went and inserted it at 200 frames per second, 200 frames, just so, because the 1A was that. So we just wanted to insert the same one next to it. So what our next step was to make sure that the end pose was the same as the beginning. So we went on to expand the subtrack and elongate it to the whole length of the animation. And then just click on the key. So if we just extend this, I can show you there's a key there, and we just wanted to mark it so it retained the pose. And then we went and unclicked it so it captured that pose in the right place. Once we had done that, the pose was just was saved, and we then processed the whole of the animation file. So 1A was processed, as is shown here. That was a process file, and we went on to repeat the same process for 1A, for 1B, and then again for 1C. So all these processed versions of the files were then pasted into the one animation track here, and then that whole animation track was then processed again to complete a whole animation which we can use for a different character. So that was as far as I got to in Motion Builder. My next step is to then import that into Unity and start working on my dialogue. So my future plans for my coursework 1. So I used Bugista Bros as inspiration, as I really liked the layout, and it was one of my favorite places to go. And the lighting was just really well done. I really liked the whole surrounding area of the cafe, and I thought it would work well with my cafe as well. So I went on to make a floor plan in 3ds Max, and just to give me a basic idea of what I could do. So this was just very basic with using blocks and spheres. So my intention is to add lighting, but using stools and the booths with the sofa, just adding a bit more detail. So this is a front view of what I could do. So have the till at the front there, and have the customers coming in to do their orders and then going to take a seat over there. So again, this is the left view. And then, as mentioned, I want to focus on some of the details here and try to capture that atmosphere using my within my animation. So that's about it, and hopefully I can develop that and implement that into my coursework by the next video.